Okay, looks like that's about time. So I would like to welcome for our next presentation from Macquarie University, Bronwen Neil, Susan Lupack, Deborah Richards, I'm going to butcher this, Ayse.
Ayse, I think. Ayse.
Ayse, there we go. Bilgin and Meredith Porte to talk about the Greek Villa project using VR to bring historical experiences to life and arouse empathy.
Cool. Okay, so just to say, Bronwen was supposed to be here and started off. But since she's not, and actually I'm really hoping that she's okay and everything's all right, I can certainly talk for 20 minutes on this project easily. So actually, why don't I go ahead and share my screen with you guys?
It's informal, so you run it any way you like.
Okay, yeah, that's what I figured 20 minutes ago. I was like, okay. Let's see. There we go. That's all good. Okay, so first let me say that I am the academic on this project. I'm not the person who knows very much about the technology behind it, but I can speak to that briefly. What I want to do is go through some slides with you and show you sort of what I started with, like my educational intent behind this, and then I'll get in the end to the Greek villa and try to navigate through it. That's the part that I'm not good at, and which usually I have other people do for me, to be honest. My graduate student will do it for me sometimes. So basically, the project started not with me, but rather with people. Deborah Richards is really the lead, and she got in touch with Bronwen through Cache connections. And then they asked me if I wanted to come on board because I'm teaching a very large class called the Archaeology and Society. And I thought this would be a fantastic thing to do, creating a virtual reality Greek villa, because my heavy emphasis in this class is on the society part. And so I'm always trying to communicate to the students what it was like to live in the ancient world, what the relationships were, what kind of, what the social hierarchy was, how that affected people. And by the end of the term, so I use this in the end of the term, I'm happy to be able to show them something like this to sort of immerse them, as they say, into the Greek villa and what it would be like to be there. The project, it's interesting because this was created for a certain sort of like test, what we did was we separated my class, which was almost 150 students, and we had lots of tutorials. So each tutorial, what we did was we took half of the class. We didn't tell them ahead of time. Ayse was the one who was helping with the random numbers. We took half of the class and took them over to the simulation hub, which is where, if we were live, we could show this to you today, and had half of the class navigating through our created virtual reality villa, Greek villa, and the other half of the class stayed with me and had a regular kind of more lecture-ish tutorial than I usually run. Usually I run more interactive, but I was trying to get a certain amount of information across, because what we were doing was going to give both groups a test afterwards, a quiz afterwards, to see about their knowledge retention from each of the different modes. So we were doing one, the traditional classroom, one was the virtual reality, and I was trying to craft both of them so that I could get the information that I wanted to get across to the students in both classes, in not an identical way, obviously, but at least the same types of information. So then at the end of these experiences, each group took a quiz. The quiz was identical. And the questions that we were asking was whether or not the students would be able to retain knowledge better from factual kind of knowledge, from the virtual reality experience, or from the experience with me in the classroom. Then we also had a couple of questions afterwards, 3 questions, 3 or 4, which were more designed to try to understand whether they had this more empathetic reaction from the virtual reality. The thought was, having read some literature on it, that the virtual reality would give the group a more empathetic reaction to the situation that people find themselves in the ancient world and today as well. Like, these things are communicable to today, and that's kind of important to me too, as well, to try to express that to the students and bring it home to them. And I saw the title of one of the other talks that's later, like, how real is too real? And that's kind of something that we were addressing here as well, that we had to think about when we were doing it, because we were thinking about, you know, what we wanted to do was put the students in the place of a 15-year-old slave girl who was entering a new household for the first time, and to see what their reaction was going to be. So we wanted it to be real enough to evoke that empathetic, that identification with the character, but we also wanted it not to be too over the top. And you never want to get people upset. You never want to push, I don't anyway, want to push boundaries like that. So that's an interesting paper for me. What I wanted to do, so this was the setup. I wanted to show you how basically a little bit of the background, but also to show you what kinds of materials I was using in the traditional classroom before we get to the Greek villa virtual reality situation. So just to say, like, I would be showing them, here's a map of Greece. We're going to the site of Olympos, which is up here in northern Greece. The reason we're doing this is because Olympos, wait, I have you on gallery screen, but hopefully you guys see this. The reason we're going here, of course I'm abbreviating, is because this is a city that was planned from scratch in 432 BC, and I go into the historical reasons behind that, and then was destroyed in 348 BC. And so this gives us kind of a nice 84-year span of time. It's in a sense a nice snapshot of people living in the past. And well, this actually was not my decision, but the decision was made that we wouldn't do look at one of these houses, which are clearly more for the regular people, but rather what we call a villa, which isn't actually a villa. Actually, it's a house, but anyway, it's a bigger house than these. You can see how this was planned, right? I'm going into teacher mode, I should stop. But we have a bunch of larger houses down here, which are quite phenomenal. And very interesting. And the reason why I think that was a good choice to go with the Greek villa rather than the smaller ones is because I was trying to communicate this level of interaction between the elites, higher classes, the middle classes, and the slaves that were living in the household. So this is the society kind of thing that I'm trying to show them. This site was dug in the 30s, so we don't actually have a whole lot of gorgeous pictures from it. It would be worth revisiting this site for sure. Actually, Nicholas Cahill has restudied it, but he hasn't put up a lot of nice pictures. So this is what I have to show the students. This kind of a ground plan that is very basic, you know, not fancy dancy, but what I can tell them is, you know, there's an entryway here, there's this courtyard here that had a portico around it, so it was covered. The interior that was open to the sky is paved. We know it had 2 stories because we have the staircase here. We know that there's an altar in the center, for instance, and that was a special feature. We know that there's the kitchen was here. This is based on the finds. Storeroom was here, and maybe a master bedroom here. And this is the agathitiki, I always say it in modern Greek, not ancient, but this means good fortune. Okay. And the andron, which was pretty spectacular, and this is why this building is very often focused on, is because we have this andron, which is a dining room for men and his male guests, not the females in the household. And it was covered with mosaics on the floors, which is a very, very early set of mosaics. So this is what I have to show them. And this, which is not great, even it looks even worse blown up, sorry, but this is sort of like the archaeological pictures I have to show them of this nice mosaic, which is actually Dionysus in blood and maenads around it, you know, spearing poor little deer. This was the entryway with two pan type guys, and then the main andron beyond it, with that Dionysus fresco. And in the vestibule, we have one with Achilles and his mother Thetis. So I can do all sorts of things with this and talk about the mythology behind it. I'm trying to watch the time, watch the mythology behind it, what's going on in these images, as well as talk about, well, we knew that the room was painted. We had yellow paint from the bottom. And then I can go into also like the kinds of things that happened in the household. So I can use an image of a head of household female figure pouring a libation onto an altar that here's her house, right? This could have been the kind of situation that we have in the Greek villa of good fortune, with somebody pouring a libation onto the altar. Weaving was done, we know, in those porticos because we found the loom weights there. We found grindstones there, we find cookingware there. So we know that actually women were working in that courtyard, which is kind of going against some of the literature we have, so I can play off that. And then of course the fun scenes of the men at their symposium. And I always tell them that this would not have been a female from the household because that was off limits. They would hire flute girls and other entertainers to come in, but you would never display your own slaves even within the household, within these scenes. Okay, so then with that kind of educational background, this is what was put together, not by me, but mostly by Meredith Porte. And I had a very close interaction with her while we were making this, because she wanted to do it as accurately as possible, which was great because that was my goal as well. And if Michael Rampy is out there, he might notice that some of these are objects that he scanned from our museum and that we put into the household in order to make it, to try to give a little bit more authenticity to it. The nice thing is, you know, then she modeled it, and I actually got out of our article, which was just accepted for publication this week, I'm very happy to say, exactly what software was used. So she, Meredith used Blender, 3D modeling Blender software to make some of the objects, because we couldn't get everything from the museum, the scanned objects. But we got other things, like I would send her images like the ones that I get off of the pots, you know, the vase paintings. I would send her images and say, can you put this in here? And she would do it. It's like, it is like magic. Then she put all of this into the virtual game environment Unity 3D. And the characters were created by, she used a program, Adobe Fuse, okay? And what we did was we created a head of household. So this is the female head of household. And to sort of replicate that image that I just showed you, she actually is going to be sacrificing at the altar. And here's the kind of dish that that woman was holding on that thing. And here we have other things, like I was saying. Here you can see, oh, look at that. You know, it goes up to a second story. And the students, when they're in here, can actually go up to the second story and see what's going on. We put the daughter of the household working at a loom in the portico, because like I said, we found loom weights there. So that's an appropriate thing for us to populate this area with women working in the outside, under the covered portico area. And then we can enter the andron. I'm giving you screenshots so I can talk about them, and then I'm going to try and show you the actual virtual reality thing, but I have trouble controlling that, so I just thought I'd give you some screenshots first. So this is how we designed the vestibule with the fresco on the floor. It looks gorgeous to me. And then you turn around, you see the two pan types of figures with a great big crater symbolizing the wine that they're about to drink, and hopefully don't get bestial like this, like these two guys. Don't go too far, that's a warning. And then inside we had the male slave, and our young 15-year-old slave has conversations with each one of these people within the household. So we move around, the students move around as the Layla character, the 15-year-old slave character, and she meets these different characters, the head slave, the head of the household, and has conversations with them. And just to say that we put all of these kinds of things in here are taken from vase paintings and then taken from the museum actual objects that we have, all of these kailikis. This is one we have in our museum. Hi, Bronwen. So this is, I'm going for it, Bronwen, I'm just talking. So this is actually, you can see the fresco far better in the 3D virtual reality situation than you could even in the image that I'm able to show the students, because we never got a great photo of it. Okay, so now I thought we would enter into the portal to the Greek villa. Bronwen, do you want to take over, or are you happy with me to do it? Okay, okay. Let's see if this works. Oh, I realize I have to stop sharing, don't I? Okay, I have to stop sharing and then reshare my screen, or else you guys won't be able to see this. I think that's the problem. So stop share. Okay, now I'm going to reshare. And what time do we have? I have 5 more minutes, I think. Is that correct? Yeah. So here's the screen that we start on. Can you guys see the screen that we start on? Yes? Okay. So this is where we introduce the students to Layla so that they understand this is their character and that they are who she is, that she's first sold by her family at 8 years old. She can speak Greek, but not well. You know, she's a good cleaner and cook and things like that. So here's where I was saying, like I was telling them, Bronwen, we didn't want to push the reality too far, but you sort of, actually, this was where Bronwen really did fantastic. She made up, well, I edited, but she made up the dialogues, and the dialogues are funny because she actually put the humor in where I was not so able to, like, I'm more thinking about what I want to teach the students. And she's like, let's make it fun. Okay. I'm not very good with this. Oops, I have to turn around. Oops, okay. Wow, I'm getting to the door. Let's see. So we have the whole house sort of set up in an orchard with farms around it, and the sounds that they might have heard, like cicadas, are very, very big in Greece. So you would always have heard all of these things. So the idea was to try to create the environment. Can I not go in? Nope. Here we go. So the students are far better at this than I am. But here's where we enter, and we see this whole area with the atrium opening up. And I think if we get to, it would just be nice to be able to give you one of the dialogues, if I can manage. Oops. It's not coming up. There we go.
Good, you've finally arrived. I am Chloe, wife of Theophilus, the master of this house. How much Greek do you know?
And Layla says, I know a little. Probably she's like, I know a little.
I see, not much. Well, the name Theophilus means that your new master is loved by the gods, and as you can see, the gods are smiling upon us here in this household. Thank Zeus for all that we have. Tonight, when the men return home, we will welcome you with fruits and nuts as a new member of this household. What is your name?
My name is Layla. Oops.
Ah, foreigners always have unusual names. We might have to give you a new Greek name. Where do you come from?
I'm from Ashur in Assyria.
Never heard of it. Never mind. Since you are working for me now, I will give you an introduction to the house. Have you ever seen an altar in the courtyard of a house before?
and then they can choose which one, but our dialogue is,
Well, I am sure you've never
Yes or
seen
no?
one this beautiful.
Hmm.
This is where I make the daily sacrifices to the household gods. You clean up afterwards. Make sure not to let the wine stain the stone, or the milk stand too long in the heat. And if I see birds eating the grain, I'll be furious.
so you
Don't
see,
touch the fear alley. It is precious to us, and only I or the master can handle it. Do you have any questions?
what's a fiali? Or what gods do you sacrifice to?
Goodness, you really don't understand much, do you? The fear alley is that bronze dish on the table over there. We use it to pour libations at this altar to our gods.
Which gods do you sacrifice to?
Just the usual: Hestia, goddess of the hearth; Demeter, who provides the golden grain; Zeus, who protects the house, its people and its animals. And soon we'll have a special dedication for Artemis. Our daughter Glauke is getting married next month. I'm sure you foreigners don't have civilized traditions like ours, so I'll tell you that on the wedding day Glauke will dedicate a lock of her hair and her childhood toys at the altar before she leaves for her new husband's home.
So you see the kinds of things that we do. It's quite fun. Oops. I'm just trying to, hold on, see if I can get you through to, oh, I'm in the wrong place. Sorry, guys. This is what I was hoping wouldn't happen. I'm trying to get us through to the Andron, but, right.
I might just let you know, Susan, we've just got a minute or two left for questions if you'd like to, or we can
Okay.
continue with this.
Okay, why don't we skip this, because I think from the screenshots, maybe that helps you get an idea. Like I said, the students are far better about navigating, and it's supposed to be used with controls anyway in this larger screen. The screen's wrapped around, and it actually brought you more into it. We decided not to use, by the way, Google Glasses, because in previous experiments like this or previous situations like this, it tended to make the students really nauseous. So I thought, let's skip that. And Deborah also was fine with that. And we just had them in this experience with the virtual wraparound. And just to say what we found was that in the end, when we did the tests, the knowledge retention was actually superior with the in-class education, which I kind of was happy about. But on the other hand, the empathetic questions brought out this idea that the students actually really identified with the people more and were thinking more about what it would have been like to live in that time period. And that's something that I thought, this is something I can capitalize on in the classroom, because then once they've done this experience and they have that empathetic reaction, then I can come back and say, okay, so why did this happen? And they can, and actually I think it leads to more engagement with the education, with the information even that I'm trying to convey. So I might leave it there.
Great, thank you very much. It's a very exciting project. I definitely want to keep up and see where it goes from here.